Joining me on today's Spotlight is calling guest Aaron Baer. He is the president of Citizens for Community Values, Ohio's Family Policy Council. Welcome to the Daily Spotlight, Aaron.
Karen, thanks for having me on again.
On Friday, February 16th, a Hamilton County, Ohio judge removed custody of a minor child from the parents to the grandparents. What is this case all about?
You know, Karen, this case is really an unprecedented case, a first of its kind in the nation, and genuinely is sending chills down my spine as a parent. What you have happening in this situation is now a 17-year-old girl who is experiencing gender dysphoria, a very real mental condition that oftentimes has traumatic consequences when treated wrongly. So this child's experiencing gender dysphoria and wants to take dangerous and untested puberty-suppressing drugs and quote-unquote gender transition drugs. And the parents, rightfully, don't want to allow her to take these drugs to transition to be a boy. Well, Hamilton County, basically the government of Ohio, has stepped in and removed the child from the household, at one point claiming it was neglected abuse to not allow this child to take gender transition drugs. Now, let that sink in for a moment, is that the government is coming to take children away from parents whose only crime, you could say, is not wanting them to pursue a path of medical treatment that would allow them to transition genders. I mean, that is beyond the pale. This is really unique and in many ways kind of a signpost of things to come.
Aaron, I agree with you. This decision is alarming. The parents' attorneys argued that their child was not even close to being able to make such a life-altering decision at the time, whereas the county prosecutor argued that the parents wanted to stop the treatment because it violated their religious beliefs. This ruling targets parents of faith. Why should every parent be concerned about this ruling?
Well, I think you're hitting it right on the head there, Karen, and there's two things going on here. One, just a general parental rights problem. You know, any parent should be incredibly alarmed that the government is willing to take a child away from everything we can tell now. Now, there's facts in the case that aren't out right now because a lot of the courts are sealed, but from what we've been able to see so far, from what is a good and safe home, the only crime of the parents is not wanting to allow their child to take dangerous and untested drugs. So on the parental rights aspect, you have that. But then you have this very real attack on faith where the county is entering as evidence of neglect and abuse the fact that, you know, the parents wanted the child to go see a Christian counselor, that they were allowing them to go to Cincinnati Children's Hospital and get medical care there, but they also wanted them to have Christian counseling. And just the fact that they wanted them to have Christian counseling was a factor in the county claiming neglect and abuse. I mean, that right there is unheard of in so many ways. And again, there's this religious freedom side of it, which more and more you have the left and the culture and government at large sort of equating Christian theology, Christian views as bigotry and abusive, which is really unheard of in our lifetime.
We recognize that gender dysphoria is a complicated issue, but when the government overreaches and it tries to dictate even what kind of counselor you can see, that should make every mom and dad concerned in America.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is one of those cases where even the most avid advocates of the transgender ideology admit the science is so early on. There's no studies on the long-term effects of this, that there's, you know, actually a lot of the research shows that children in particular will, for lack of a better phrase, grow out of their gender dysphoria and naturally realign with their biological realities. The drugs that they're using here were not designed for this purpose. They're using them in a way that was off the label, the way the FDA approved. And there's no long-term studies on the effects that these drugs have on children in particular, but adults as they grow. This isn't even settled science that we see happening here. This is really ideology taking precedent over good, sound medicine and reasonable disagreement on the best treatment options.
Aaron, both you and I are aware that there is a tremendous amount of research available, and I've seen anywhere between 80% to 95% of teens who want to transition, who don't identify with their biological sex as a teen, but by the time they reach their early 30s, they've come back full circle, and now they identify with their biological sex. When we encourage hormone blockers, puberty blockers, we put in motion things that can't be changed. And so when you're 30 and you now identify with your biological sex, unfortunately, some of the procedures are permanent and cannot be reversed. Also concerning is that it isn't sound science. We do have on record, for instance, Johns Hopkins Hospital, who used to do sex transition reassignment surgeries, are no longer performing these surgeries.
Yeah, and Karen, you're hitting on so many great points there. I think, first off, there's a reason why when you're under 18, you don't have sort of complete autonomy over your life. You can't go get married on your own. You can't enter into, major financial deals on your own, because we recognize that the young mind is fleeting. You'll make decisions and change your mind, and you need guidance. And so for hospitals and for medical professionals to be forcing and pushing life-altering decisions on children. And I think what's important, Karen, and you touched on this earlier, we are acknowledging that gender dysphoria is very real, and what the children are experiencing is very real in terms of a dysphoric situation where they don't feel like their biological realities align with their mental state. We're not saying that's not happening, but we're saying the best treatment course here, the thing that's most helpful for them, isn't to pursue these dangerous drugs.
I also noted in the ruling that Judge Hendon says that in addition to receiving custody, the grandparents can petition to change the child's name in probate court. I know that you have a young daughter, Aaron. Can you imagine if a court came in and said to you, your daughter's grandparents can change your daughter's name?
And this is really the call to the church here. Is one, we have a serious justice issue where every parent should be concerned about their child being taken away, or like you're saying, like their child being renamed. But there's a justice issue for these people with gender dysphoria that the church really needs to awaken to, is that harm is being done to these people with gender dysphoria. They're making decisions and they're being pushed into a lifestyle, encouraged down a lifestyle. And the church, in many ways, is quiet on it because we're afraid of the backlash. We're afraid of being called bigots. We're afraid of how to talk about it. Or maybe we're rightly afraid of running people out of our churches and we want to love them. But our silence is not love.
At the core of this debate should be compassion and the understanding of God's love. And it is a wonderful opportunity for the church to arise. Our conversation should be centered on justice. It's about caring for those that are caught in a struggle. We can be a voice of hope and understanding. Aaron, in closing, the judge also encouraged Ohio lawmakers to create legislation giving judges a framework in which they can evaluate a patient's right to gender therapy. I think you and I would agree that we've been concerned for years. We've seen this coming, and well, now it's here. And to force the hand of lawmakers and say you need to give us a path forward can be concerning. However, we need to use this as an opportunity, not an obstacle.
Absolutely. And that's something that we're seriously looking at. We're looking at, Judge Hendon's call for legislation, and we're saying, yeah, you know what? This is very clear. We need legislation to fix this, to make sure people like you cannot make these dangerous decisions ever again. And so that is something we're taking very seriously, and we can't allow it to happen. I mean, we have obligations. I keep thinking, as a father, I have obligations to steward and protect my family to the best of my ability, and staying silent on an issue like this would not be me fulfilling that obligation.
Thank you for what you do in Ohio, standing watch with citizens for community values. You are in our prayers as you go forward to stand for justice and to stand for family, freedom, and life.
Absolutely, Karen. Thank you so much. And thank you. I don't think Nebraska fully appreciates that they have one of the greatest hearts for compassion and justice in the country, and you leading the Family Policy Council there. So thank you so much for all you do.
God bless you, Aaron.